Hey guys, I'm going to try to make another podcast today. So, I had this thought that I don't think I've ever said before. I don't even know if I've thought this before, but when you're a baby, you can stare at people. And at some point in toddlerhood, you lose, like, the permission to just stare. And, like, I don't know if this is true, but I, remember losing permission to stare. It was just like this, I don't know, like this subtle social thing where like you were so used to being able to stare, and suddenly it was like once you learn language, your mother quickly tells you don't stare at people. And you learn what that means. And you learn that by like the age of like 3 or 4 or 5. But it's just how quick and abrupt that transition is. Where you're not allowed to stare. I thought about this just because I was watching this live cam of like this place in public on the computer where you can basically just people watch and watch the road. And there was like this carriage like with horses, and um and there was a baby, and there was like a restaurant too. And I just saw, I guess, the funniest example. There was this gang of Harley Davidson bikers just outside the restaurant, and someone was staring at them. That's the kind of people you don't want to just stare at. They might fuck you up. But wait a minute, it was just a baby. It was just a baby staring, that's all. And I just noticed the bikers. And if that same human would have been older, it would have just been sketch to stare at bikers. I'm pretty sure any bikers in the world, even the scary ones, or a gang, gangsters, would automatically forgave a baby for staring. But once you cross a certain age, the human no longer has this excuse to like stare. But anyway, um, it's kind of a privilege to be able to stare. Babies don't even know how lucky they are. You could just comfortably stare and inspect and inspect and inspect. And it's like, even if a person notices that a baby is staring at them, they don't even feel the same as they would feel if a grown up was staring at them. Like, they're not as self conscious of like the observation because they know that the baby can't possibly be judging the shit out of them. Like, you might assume if any person of a higher age was staring. But anyway, unless it's Stewie Griffin. But anyway, I was thinking a lot about looking lately, and I realized I never ever felt more sorry for blind people than I have lately. lately I've realized how much I use sight. Like, I look at the planets, it's like I use sight as like a primary spiritual or religious tool almost. I can't imagine being neglected a spiritual tool about existence. And it makes me feel really sorry for blind people. Like when I look at the planets through my telescope, or the stars or Andromeda Galaxy, vision is the only way to experience it. Like, you can't go there. I guess you could hear about them and learn about them, the places, but any direct perception with these celestial objects is only possible through sight. Like the photons from the stars hurtle across space and they touch your eyes. That's the only way that you can intimate with them with any of your senses, any of the five senses. It's the only one that you can use to experience Mars right now. Not that Mars is up right now, but you know what I mean. It's not like you can smell Mars, you can't hear Mars, you can't touch Mars, you can't taste Mars. What's the other one? Smell, touch, taste, hear. And then there's see, yeah. Seeing is the only one. I just can't imagine why blindness is a thing for anyone. It's another one of those things in this existence where it's like you don't even want to talk about like justice there from God. Like so many experiences, of course, you say, God, how could you? How could you? And it's even more awkward to suggest that God does things because it's supposed to be that way. I don't think there's ever supposed to be a blind person. And to suggest that they deserve that somehow, I can't believe that either. I can't suggest that there's supposed to be a blind person. And I feel awkward thinking that there's no God and that this is just a randomly bad coincidence, that this person is blind. And the only thing that makes you feel better, I mean, you just can't. Like, to say that God cursed them for something, that hurts. But maybe the blind person does have some kind of a spiritual gift in being blind. Like, I'm over here looking at the planets, but you know what? I'm kind of attaching to matter, sort of. But maybe not. Like, maybe I'm using vision and perception of existence to satisfy myself so that I can detach. Or something, like me and the blind person are on different paths or something. Like my soul was supposed to be allowed to have eyes that work in this temporary life, to be able to see the things that I can see for whatever purpose. And I might not be able to understand. Maybe blind people are just on a different path that's right for them somehow. I just can't even. I've never thought of it that much before though. Like I'm thinking about blindness and how sorry I feel more significantly than I've even thought about deafness. Like you could probably have the same talk about deaf people like, "Oh, they can't hear music. Music is such a spiritual thing in this life." Like and then you think, "Wow, how could they possibly be neglected from a spiritual experience?" But I don't sit and listen to music all that much as I use vision lately. Even reading. Like I read books sometimes and blind people can't read except with braille. But they can hear books read, but there's something about reading that I personally prefer reading over hearing a book. I think it's a better mental exercise. Sometimes I've literally feared that I'm using too much sight to the point where, like, if I ever had to reincarnate, which I fear God over, just the idea of having to reincarnate, like, if I ever had to, I worry my next life would be some blind person because, like, I imbalanced my karma too much because I overused my eyes. Like, I just saw too much, especially too much ass on screens from porno. And I looked at the sun. I looked straight at the sun through my solar filter on my telescope. So it's just like God makes the sun so bright. There's this implication that you're not supposed to look directly at it. And I just bypass or circumvent the brightness that God put in place. And I look at it anyway. To the point where I fear that God might be saying, like, how dare you look at it so much? You looked at it too much, dude. To the point where in my next life, I'll be like blind or some creature that's blind, like a bat or something, or like, or something that doesn't see much. I don't know how much turtles see. Maybe a turtle or something. I don't think so, though. Or I hope not. I'm really speaking outside of my frame of understanding right now. Like, I have no idea if reincarnation is even real, or what I would have to be, or what I would deserve to be in my next life. But who cares? I babble in this podcast. So, anyway, I guess I'll turn this podcast off for now.